Aquarius. This is your reading for August 18th, or whenever you hear it and it resonates, and it won't be for every Aquarius. When I started doing this, I said, okay, let's do Aquarius. What would you like to say? And all of a sudden, I got an image of you peering through a portal of a submarine, looking into the ocean, and there's all these beautiful creatures floating by, and you're watching them with delight. And I said, blue submarine. And I heard, no, yellow submarine. So I looked up the lyrics. Now, the thing that struck me about the lyrics the thing that struck me about the lyrics was this. Number one, that it was about people taking off on an adventure in a submarine. And they had a captain. And then, as you go on, so we sailed onto the sun till we found a sea of green, and we lived beneath the waves in our yellow submarine. And our friends are all aboard, many more of them live next door, and the band begins to play. And then it goes on, as we live a life of ease, every one of us has all we need, sky of blue and sea of green in our yellow submarine. So let's start off, Aquarius, by saying I feel like for many of you, this is where you're at. And I feel like this is really embracing the Aquarian energy, that when I think about the dawning of the age of Aquarius, it's got all the elements: ease, flow, community, cooperation, enjoyment. And I feel as though many of you are already on that route. Now, it's also very interesting to me because, of course, it's water. So water is emotion. Water is attachment, detachment. I'm drawing on a couple of different energy models here, but attachment, detachment, and sensuality, sexuality, the part of the brain and the nervous system that we often associate with creative impulses. Okay, so you've got your community, happy, all of that stuff. Now, the first card that you get is creativity. As I pull the cards, you get creativity. Creativity is an energy and is designed to be lived and appreciated in all acts of life, from the socks you choose to the kind of mustard you put on your sandwich. Creativity is not a gift endowing the bearers with a membership to a private and elite club. And I think that's so important because, Aquarius, some of you have not really believed in your ability to be creative. And the reality is most of you are extremely creative. You haven't always applied it to something that is as perhaps less structured as art. You have often experienced it in terms of workplace, structures that you create for work. And for many of you, you haven't applied it to work so much as you have used work in a way where that became your community. And whatever you did for that work became what was important. It became really linked to your personal value. Now, what I feel here, Aquarians, is that you're moving away from that. If you haven't already, what I feel like you're doing is you are moving away from that, and you are saying, okay, now, that wasn't comfortable. I didn't like that. What did I do to create that? And what can I choose to make it different? How would I like to live this? What kind of creativity would I like to live? What kind of ease? What kind of flow? What kind of community ideally would I like if I were to look at this not in terms of work structure, but in terms of finding my tribe? I'm going to say finding my tribe. And I feel like you are in the process of doing that. If not actually finding people who are your tribe, but I suspect many of you are, when you're starting to really define and determine who isn't part of your tribe. And you're letting it be okay to let that go. And I feel as though part of what's happening now is you're being much more aware of your choices and how they make you feel. And this is so very important. Because once you allow yourself to really get in touch with your feelings about a situation, that's when you're not going to apologize for setting boundaries that are right for you and not having to apologize for them. And again, it doesn't mean you can't do it kindly, but it means that, and it means that you can still do it. Okay? Now, within this process, you're being reminded. Be sincere with what you're doing. And that goes back into the choose, okay? The choices that you make. Be aware of anchoring into your heart so that when you do communicate, whatever you are communicating, it's going to be done with the energy that is going to be more in flow and less about resistance. What does that mean? That means, for example, instead of saying to somebody, I can't stand you, keep away, that's one. It might be going into your heart going, you know, that's really kind of you to offer. And for now, I'm just going to say no. Ooh, that's pretty soft. That's pretty gentle, but it's a no. And that's, again, just one example, but it's being aware of how you feel when you're about to make a statement. And trust me, I have certainly many times in the process of learning how to set boundaries, not always done it with elegance. And that's something that's part of, growing up and learning how to do it from the wise place rather than from the wounded place or the triggered place, okay? So you're also being told, my dears, that if there is a situation that you're having trouble forgiving, please look at this energy and check out your ideas about right and wrong. Check out your ideas about forgiveness and blame. And the reason I say that is because I had a thought flow in right at the beginning that was very important. And it was this. There may have been situations in your life in which you were victimized. The important step around victimization is to remember the fact that just because someone victimized you does not mean you are a victim, okay? You were victimized in that instant, but you are not a victim, because if you carry that imprint of being a victim, which most of us do if we have felt victimized, we carry that energy around us, and that's very disempowering. It happened at a time, it was then, that's it. If we keep replaying it in our mind, which we will often do as part of a blaming thing, then what we do is we keep reinforcing the belief, I am a victim. Well, what does that do? That's an energy, that's a victim energy, and what do we know about energy? It's magnetic. So what you're being also asked to look at in this process of creating your life and how you're moving forward is also choose how you want to think about yourself. Notice what you really believe to be true. Check in with how those statements make you feel. I'm sure if you make the statement, I am a victim, you are going to feel your energy drop. And if you were to do a muscle test on yourself, you would feel your energy drop like crazy. Sometimes it seems almost impossible to forgive something. And sometimes it's a really big thing, and sometimes it's a small thing. It seems like a small thing. It's a friend not showing up for us, but they don't talk to you for years after that. Or you don't talk to them, whatever. You know what I mean. It might be something like that. But the point is, you don't want to carry that victim energy because that depletes you. That really drops your energy. So whatever is there that creates a sense of victim for you, chances are there is a need for forgiveness, because if there was forgiveness, you would have let go of that energy, truly let go of that energy. So you're being asked to look again in the bigger picture of, we are all here, we're learning and growing, we make mistakes, and whoever did whatever, it doesn't help me to hold a grudge. whatever the process is for letting that go. And sometimes it's forgiveness, and sometimes it's understanding, and sometimes it's doing energy work to have that imprint come out of your energy field. Sometimes it is challenging it through positive neuroplasticity. There are many different ways to work with it. Sometimes it's shadow work. But you're being asked to please check in with that so that you can let go of any victim energy. And I'm saying this now because I'm remembering a specific situation linked to a work situation where somebody worked like crazy as part of this need to be good and to prove themselves in a work situation. Everybody in the company did. It was a small company. And when the boss sold, not only had they never had any pension, in spite of the money he was making off these people, but he also sold the company out from under them, did not protect them from the new owners, and did not give them a bonus upon leaving, even though he made a mint. That can be perceived as betrayal. That can be perceived as having been victimized by this guy for all these years, when everybody assumed that when he sold, they would also benefit, at least in a small way, like a thank you for working crazy hours and all of that stuff. That can hold you back. That can really hold you back if you continue to carry that grudge, that bitterness. Okay? So again, that's just an example of it. What we want to do is we want to say, okay, what can I do in this to let go of this? How can I perceive this now? Where do I get to grow from this? Because whenever we bump into an aberrant energy, it means that that is a place where our spirit is not living, and our attention is being called to it now so we can shift it, claim back our power, get spirit into that spot. Okay? So I feel like this is part of a process for you as you are moving into this. And remember, these things tend to come up when you are moving into the light, when you are raising your frequency. Whatever is not in alignment with that is going to come up. So for some of you, I think that might be an issue. And if it isn't now, well, it might be at some point. But I suspect most of us have some kind of holding on. Otherwise, I think we would be totally elevated. Okay? Aquarius, I love you. Take care.